Happy Passover, Ramadan Kareem, happy spring, and happy Easter. Hey, oh, such a rich and holy, juicy time. You know, I read something recently. All you need to know about life, you learned from the Easter Bunny. Are you ready? All right. Walk softly and carry a big carrot. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Everyone needs a friend who is all ears. There's no such thing as too much candy. A cute tail attracts a lot of attention. Everyone is entitled to a bad hair day. Keep your paws off other people's jelly beans. Some body parts really just should be floppy, thank you very much. The grass is always greener in someone else's basket. And last but not least, happy thoughts multiply like rabbits. All right. All joking aside, all kidding aside, if you are new or perhaps newish to our community here, or if you're checking us out online for this first time, you know, a lot of times folks come and check us out on Easter and Christmas, and you may be wondering to yourselves by now, you know, what are we all about? Who are these people? You may be scratching your head wondering, what are these world religion symbols here on the back banner? Well, in a nutshell, our faith path is called New Thought. Some refer to us as universal spirituality. New Thought is rooted in the mystical or original aspects of all of the great faith traditions of the world. Without dogma or religiosity, you will not find guilt or fire or damnation anywhere in this place. No. Yeah, no. New Thought is a metaphysical spiritual teaching. The word metaphysical merely means to see beyond the physical. So we do not take the Hebrew or Christian Bible or any sacred texts literally. We look beyond them. We look for the metaphor. We look for how they are relevant to our life today. And we understand them to be stories that are filled with timeless and ancient wisdom that we can learn from. We do not subscribe to any male deity, dude in the sky, but rather to a loving, benevolent presence that we understand to be love. And we understand this presence to be at the center of every being and in, through, and as all things and in the mystery. Why the mystery? Because we do not claim to have all the answers. We ask lots of questions. New Thought is a very practical teaching. We have lots of words for God. You're going to hear around here source, spirit, quantum consciousness. My word for God is love. You choose whatever works for you. Fred, Susie, it's love is what it is. You get to choose. You get to choose. We understand also that the quantum field that science has taught us that we live in is made up of energy. Every single thing in this universe is energy, and we are all, every one of us, a vital part of this energetic universe, both on the seen and unseen sides of life. If we could whittle our teaching down to one word, it would be oneness. But keep in mind, oneness is never sameness. The diversity of this one human family that we all belong to in all of its glorious colors and hues and genders and expressions and differences and sizes are what makes us and comprises us of this one human family. The bottom line, my friends, the bottom line is that we belong to each other, and therefore we must take care of each other. We must do everything to take care of each other and of our planet. I want to share with you our vision and mission here at the New Thought Center for Spiritual Living. It is our vision, recognizing our oneness. We envision a world that works for everyone and all creation. And our mission is providing spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. So that, in a nutshell, is who we are. Sound good? All right. So back to Easter. Religious historians and theologians have debated ad nauseum what actually happened on that very first Easter. And the fact is, we'll never know. How could we? But for me personally, I believe that it's a far more powerful choice to say, I don't know the details of what happened that Easter morning, but I do know that something happened after the death of Jesus, something that felt miraculous, because it transformed his followers, and they were clearly changed. Now, I'm a huge believer in miracles. Why? Because I see them in my work, and I see them at work every single day. When you bump into just the right person at just the right time, or when that song comes into your life, or that book, or that spiritual community that comes in at just the right time that you are ready for. Or miracles happen when you forgive the hardest thing. Miracles happen when anyone lays down a burden or an addiction or a pain. That is a miracle. A Course in Miracles says, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. They happen daily. We just think that there is difficulty in miracles. There isn't. There isn't. Now, Reverend Masando read earlier from a favorite of ours here, the theologian and Episcopal Bishop John Shelby Spong. May he rest in peace. And I just want to repeat a bit of it for this conversation. He wrote, at its very core, the story of Easter has nothing to do with angelic announcements and empty tombs. It has nothing to do with time periods, whether 3 days or 40 days or 50 days. It has nothing to do with resuscitated bodies that appear and disappear, or that finally exit this world in a heavenly ascension. Easter is a story about transformation. Now, before I get into this fabulous transformation and how it directly relates to us, I just want to set the stage for you for a moment. We know that Jesus was a historical figure, just like we know that the Buddha was a historical figure. We know that Muhammad, peace be upon him, for any Muslims in the room or any watching online, was a historical figure. Moses, we're not entirely sure about because his life dates way, way, way back, but we do know that Jesus of Nazareth was crucified, he died on a cross, he was buried in a tomb sealed by a large boulder, and as I said, on that first Easter, something felt miraculous. Something happened that felt miraculous. Now, there is an aspect of Easter that is rarely told. As I mentioned last week, kind of in passing, Jesus could easily be considered the first feminist. This said, about 500 years before Jesus, when Buddha was on the scene, I must let you know that after much urging, his aunt, Buddha's aunt, convinced the Buddha that there should be female nuns, Buddhist nuns, and he finally said yes. So that was totally unheard of 500 years before Jesus, but back to Jesus, who definitely took gender equality to the whole next level. As the story goes, Mary Magdalene is bereft. It is very clear that she was very close to Jesus, and she is bereft. Unlike the other disciples, Mary had been at the cross with Jesus when he was in his agony and when he died, and her grief was huge. And when she and the other women went back to the tomb on that third day to prepare his body, lo and behold, as the story goes, Jesus is gone from the tomb. It is empty. And so she wanders into the garden. She's alone and she's crying and she's deeply upset. And she looks up and she sees a man who she initially assumes is the gardener. Now, the typical Easter narrative is that the gardener, who is really Jesus, says her name, Mary, and she recognizes him. However, this narrative leaves out the very important detail that in the depths of her grief, this gardener says her name, but she, Mary, sees him. She sees him. An interesting side note, in 1945, there were a collection of books, if you will, called the Nag Hammadi. And in the Nag Hammadi, there was discovered gospels that were not put into the Bible. They were the Gospels of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Which, by the way, as a girl who grew up Catholic, when I first read that, when I was in seminary in the School of Ministry, I wept. She talks about the meeting in the garden. And for Mary, for her telling of it is that she had a vision. It gives a very different and important layer to this story. She is the first one to see and recognize the ascension of Jesus of Nazareth, who then becomes Jesus the Christ. Mary Magdalene is the first to see that Jesus has resurrected. Now, usually we only hear about Mary Magdalene up until this point, the point of the resurrection. But the Eastern Orthodox tradition of Christianity continued her story. She goes on to the court of Tiberius Caesar, where one night they are having a feast, and Mary Magdalene, this, by the way, that she was allowed into their feast is evidence of her high social standing and her wealth. How else would she be able to have an audience with Caesar? In the story, she goes in right there in the middle of the feast, and she tells them about the horrific way Jesus was treated. She tells Caesar about the way that he was crucified, and she tells them, what courage, about his resurrection. She tells them this. And then one of the men at the feast doubts what she says. And as the story goes, he says to her, Jesus could no more resurrect than an egg on this table could turn red. And supposedly Mary Magdalene picked up the egg, and it immediately turned red. This miracle is depicted in art all over the world. This story, this is why many icons painted in the Byzantine Catholic style show Mary Magdalene holding a red egg. Long before Christianity, in the pagan world, eggs were a symbol of creation and of spring and of rebirth. But the resurrection story, this miracle, took on an even deeper symbolic meaning, and the tradition of sharing eggs on Easter stems from Mary Magdalene's courage and her proclamation of the resurrection of Jesus the Christ to the emperor. We have Easter eggs because of Mary Magdalene. I just wanted to make sure we all knew that. Another fun side note, I find it interesting. It was the egg that was Mary's initial association with the color red, which later became associated with sexuality and the idea that she was a prostitute. However, my friends, I want to set the record straight. just because I like to set the record straight, Mary Magdalene was not a sex worker. Nope, she was not. She wasn't. In the 6th century, Pope Gregory gave a sermon where he just decided that she was. And that rumor stuck. Mary Magdalene actually financially contributed to the ministry of Jesus. She financially supported the disciples. Remember, she had an audience with Caesar. Rumors are cruel, my friends. This rumor was finally brought to light in 1969, 1,378 years after Pope Gregory's smear campaign. The church finally corrected its mistake. Little known. How many of you have heard that this was corrected? Not many of us. 1969, they clarified that Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute. There was zero evidence of that. Feel free to Google it. It's fascinating. In 2016, even Pope Francis said that Saint Mary Magdalene is no longer to be referred to as the penitent prostitute, as she has been for so long. Rather, she is to be referred to as the apostle of the apostles. Yes. So, the original meaning of the word resurrection means to rise above something, to rise up. The metaphysical interpretation of a resurrection is the journey from fear to faith, from darkness to light, from bondage to freedom. I am praying for the resurrection of the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia and the people of this world who are impacted by violence anywhere. So, how do we make this idea of a resurrection personal to our individual lives? How do we do that? I ask you this day, this Easter morning, what is it in your own life that you, my friends, are ready to rise above? What isn't working for you right now? Where could you have more peace in your life? Where are you doubting the miracle that is you? On this Easter day, whatever that is for you, I invite you to roll away that boulder. Roll away the boulder that has kept whatever that is locked in a tomb, in the tomb of darkness and hurt, and bring it out to the light for healing. Bring it out into the garden. Bring it out. Depending on what that is for you, you may want to get support, either from counseling or a practitioner here, or journaling, or whatever works for you, talking to a trusted friend. The fact is, whatever that story is that you are telling yourself, if you're not sure what it is, it's usually connected to something around shame. Whatever that story is, it is not of love. It is not of God or Spirit or Source. It is not working on your behalf. It is keeping you separate from your good. Whatever that is keeping you separate from God. Ernest Holmes said, "The resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separated from God." The resurrection is the death of the belief that we are separated from God. My friends, the question is not whether we believe in the resurrection. The question is, are we practicing the resurrection? Each one of us has triumphed over something in our lives. Each one of us has triumphed over big things in our lives. It is our human, collective, shared experience, the tomb and the resurrection. And when we practice resurrection in our lives, when we consciously rise up, we turn our sorrow into joy, our fear into love, and our disbelief into faith. And if you think about it, the whole point of the resurrection of the story is that we are not meant to be stuck in a tomb. Ever. Ever. We aren't meant to stay in the darkness. We are meant, every one of us, to rise above it. Now, the French word for rebirth is renaissance. Isn't that fancy? I just love that. I just love that. The French word for rebirth is renaissance. Well, the other day, I was listening to a podcast with two authors that I respect, Glennon Doyle and Jen Hatmaker. And back in 2020, Jen Hatmaker, she'd been married for 27 years, has 5 children, and had a very sudden, very painful, very public divorce. And in her words, it wrecked her. It just wrecked her. She was on the floor and clearly in the tomb. But Jen did her work. She healed in her community of close friends, and she got a good therapist. Brene Brown even called her to give her advice. Must be nice. But after some time, Jen came back to herself. She came back to herself in an even greater and more powerful and more meaningful way. She rose above to a new state of being in her life. Glennon Doyle called it her Genaissance. And apparently this caught on in their community. And because, I just loved that, I thought, well, why can't we do that? Why can't we all have our own Renaissance? I will have a Shanaissance. You will have a Danaissance, a Pegaissance, a Cindyaissance, a Massandoissance. Are you with me? All right. I invite you to take this idea out into your week, whatever your name is. Whatever that may be. Rev Salliaissance. You roll that tomb out of your life, friends. Roll it away. Roll the boulder out of the way so you get out of the tomb. And this week, I invite you to just walk softly but carry a big carrot. Maybe to say a special thank you when you have your egg salad after you crack open all those beautiful decorated eggs to Mary Magdalene. Give her a little nod. I invite you to lean into your own resurrection, to rising above personally, so that we can collectively support the resurrection of this planet.